36 Seconds is a series produced by Black Heart Association based on the fact that every 36 seconds someone dies from heart disease. This series aims to highlight the devastating effects heart disease and stroke have on the Black family. Listen in to these stories of love, loss, and survival.
Well, I'm Brianna Henderson. I'm the founder of LetsTalkPPCM. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and I started the organization after experiencing heart failure after my pregnancy, and later finding out that it is what took my sister's life, my older sister's life, 3 years prior to me being diagnosed with Peripartum cardiomyopathy. And it was 2016, and me and my husband, we wasn't married yet, but I was planning, us a baby. So I couldn't get pregnant when we were trying, and so we kind of just stopped, trying, and we were engaged. It was about 3-4 months later after I had said forget it, and then all of a sudden I'm pregnant, it just happened. And so we was excited, and for my husband, it was his first go around. So, we was both just like, oh my goodness, he's hoping for a girl and I'm thinking it's going to be a boy, because we already had a boy. But I had a good pregnancy. The only thing, and I was healthy. I had a healthy pregnancy. The only thing was I had nausea the whole 9 months. So throughout the whole 9 months, I really stayed sick, and when I wasn't sick, I felt good. I was able to go to work. I still went to work every day. The days that I was able, some days I might probably felt a little down, didn't want to go, so I wouldn't. And throughout the 9-month course, it just stayed like that pretty much. The morning sickness, night sickness. Couldn't really keep anything down. So I just had to eat a lot of light foods and, fruits and veggies and stuff. And by the time we got to the 9th month, I started swelling up. And I didn't think, nothing of it because, I didn't swell up the first time, but I swelled up this time. And so I was like, okay, well, second pregnancy and everything. So maybe that's why. And I remember being at work, because I was at work the day that I had to go and get induced. So after I had left work, I was telling the job, all right, y'all, I'll be back in 3 months, And they was like, what you doing here? You been ahead of me? I'm like, yeah. And so I had got induced that night. And it wasn't until, it was 13 hours. So 13 hours had went by with labor. And I didn't think it would last that long since it was the second time. But it did. And when it came time for everything went fine until it came time to push. So once we got to pushing, my OBGYN, she noticed like some type of ball or lump or something in my uterus. And I didn't know what that meant. I never heard of that. I didn't know what it was. She didn't really fully explain it, but I guess she knew what it was. So she was like, yeah, your cervix is not dilating, past the 8, because I stayed at 8 centimeters for probably 2 hours, 3 hours, I think. It was just stuck at 8. And so she was like, okay, well, we're going to just try to push. Anyway, so I had pushed, and she was like, she's going to hold the little ball or lump that was in the uterus to the side so the baby can, because it was keeping her in and not letting her be able to come out. So I was pushing and pushing. I gave it my all, and I had an epidural. But I remember the epidural wearing off as I was pushing. So I could feel everything, but it was no pain. So I was able to feel everything. So I was able to push her on out. I just forced her on out. So after that, it was a couple of issues. She couldn't get my placenta to deliver. The first time my placenta came out within about 3 minutes, 4 minutes maybe. And this time it just stayed in there. So it took about 30 minutes with her working with it, trying to massage it or get it out of there. And I was asking her while I was sitting there just open, I couldn't hold my daughter yet. I was asking, I said, is everything okay? And she was like, yeah, she was like, you're a blood type? And I was like, no, I don't, and I'm like, was I supposed to, and she was like, it's okay, we'll get it. And I was like, okay, so I'm just sitting there waiting. And then after she got done, all right, everything's good, and I was like, okay, yay, go hold my baby. And so after I was holding her, we was bonding, I was able to eat Taco Bell that night, so I was starving. And pretty much everything went normal, like as you should when after you have a baby. So we got sent up to the room, and it was about 10 hours after the birth. I had started filling up the pads that the hospital give you. So I filled up like probably 5 in 1 hour. And I thought it was normal. It was just something I didn't know. It wasn't nothing that was brought to my attention on what to watch out, or if I had anything to look out for after that, hard process of delivery. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get in the shower because this is nasty, So I went to go get in the shower. I remember being in the shower. Normally in the water, as a woman, it kind of slows down your flow. My flow didn't slow down. It kind of just kept dripping. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I was like, okay, well, now I'm clean. I'm gonna get out the shower. I said, let me just go sit on the toilet and maybe I could, try to clean myself up. I don't know what was going on. So I sat down on the toilet, and I remember hearing just plop, 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 plop. And I looked down, and I said, oh my goodness, you just balls of blood just in the toilet. And it still didn't dawn on me. So when I got up to get everything dressed and everything, I remember drying off, and it was strange. The part of my story that I don't speak about, that I feel to speak, as I was getting dressed, I remember seeing this black shadow walk across the door in the bathroom, from the room to the bathroom, and it was real fast. And I was like, ooh, I was like, Lord Jesus. I said, I don't know what that is. I said, ooh, I was praying on myself. And so I went ahead and I went and laid down. As I was going to the bed, I was still leaking so much, even now that I had on new everything. So I had got towels, and I wrapped the towels around my feet, and I started walking to the bed. And I remember asking my husband, I was like, I said, I can't stop it. I was like, I don't know why. I said, don't ever do this. And, he was like, well, you just had the baby. And I was like, yes, I did. So I got to the bed. I told him, I said, well, I'm going to take a nap. He was kind of in and out of it himself because he was already kind of sleeping, but I did bring it to his attention before I laid down. And so I went ahead and laid down. He was asleep. The baby was asleep. And I was talking in my head. I said, well, before I take a nap, I said, well, maybe I'm going to just, page the nurse, and I'm going to just let her know what I was noticing, just to let her know to document or whatever. And when she got in there, it was about 5-6 seconds maybe when she took a look, and she just immediately got on her nurse phone and just started calling all the other nurses. While she was doing that, within that 5-6 seconds, I'm fainting. I'm already fainting. It was that close. So I lost my consciousness. I remember hearing the anesthesiologist come in. I hear him directing the nurses. He's telling them to do this, do that. So what is her blood type? I remember that blood type again, and so after they figured everything out, they had to give me 4 transfusions. So while they was giving me the 4 transfusions, they was prepping my body for surgery, an emergency surgery. At this point, I could still hear my OBGYN. They had finally got her because she had to come back to the hospital. She already knew how the birth went. So now it was time to see what happened. And she was just saying, Brianna, stay with me, Brianna, stay with me. I remember hearing that, and I was just trying to follow her voice, trying to stay, conscious. But I couldn't. It was a strong pulling me away. And I just remember praying before my eyes actually shut, and I just saw black. And my last words were, I was telling my husband, I said, God, my daddy tell my daddy. And I just fainted on out. Like, that was it. And so they rushed me to a 5-hour surgery. It took 5 hours for them to stop the bleeding. And after that, the anesthesiologist, after they woke me up, he came to talk to me, let me know what had just happened and what they had to do. He said that they was this close to pulling out my uterus. He put his fingers so close together. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, and I was kind of thankful because I'm like, what if I wanted to have more? But yeah, so he was like, but if the bleeding, he was like, if the procedure that we did, it was like a balloon procedure that they do. He was like, if it didn't work, then they would have to go ahead and take out the uterus. And so I was like, okay, you know, whatever can stop it. But fortunately, it worked. Everything had worked out. So they had readmitted me and my daughter. We got readmitted. My blood pressure was kind of elevated because they was like it was due to the surgery. My body was upside down for 5 hours. I remember being so swollen, you know, but like I said, it was from what we were thinking is from the surgery. And so me and my daughter, we stayed there another 5 days. They got everything regulated, my blood pressure, everything was fine. I remember the day that I was discharged, or about to be discharged. My obstetrician came back, and I just had randomly asked her if she could check my heart. It was just a random question, and I asked her, she was, you know, she don't normally get that question, and she was like, yeah, you know, she's like, I can check your heart, you know, and you know, because she knew that during my pregnancy, during my sessions, I would be talking to her about my sister, you know, I lost my sister and stuff, and you know, she would, we had like a little connection going, and so she was like, yeah, I'll check your heart, you know, and so she sent up the echocardiogram that measures the heart function, and they said everything had looked good. You know, so I was fine. I felt good. Blood pressure was good. They said my heart is good. Everything was good, and we got discharged. It wasn't until 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, I developed a small cough, and I didn't, you know, chalk it up to anything. I have bad sinuses and allergies, so you know, I'm thinking that's what it is. The cough, it started to progress. It kind of started to become more, and it was constant. You know, I would have to cough every so often or every so many words, you know. By the time we got to, it was a 6 week. By the time we got to the 6 week postpartum, it was Christmas Day. Christmas Day, we had went to a gathering. I remember my dad looking at me, and he was like, you look bad, you look sick, you know, and I was like, well, I ain't been feeling good, you know, and he was like, well, what is it, you know, your allergies and stuff, cause, you know, I was like, yeah, I think so, and he was like, well, I got some medicine in here you could take, you know, so I was like, okay, so I had took the medicine and stuff while I was there, and I never felt no relief, you know, but I was like, I'll just take another one later there, you know, it gotta work out, work itself out. And when we got home that night, I remember getting out the car. We was in apartments at the time, so from the parking lot to getting to the actual apartment door, it felt like I was racing when all I was doing was walking. I was walking with the baby bag and some food in my hand. So I remember getting halfway there, and I told my husband, I said, oh, y'all go ahead. I said, I'm trying to catch my breath, you know, and he was like, okay, you know, so I had finally made it to the steps, and it was about probably 14 steps. And so I remember making it halfway through the steps, and I told my husband, because he was coming back for me, I think got the kids to the house, and he was like, you okay, you know, give me this bag, give me this food, like that. And I was like, oh, there you go. And I said, I just need a break, you know, so I'm breaking right here outside. I can't get in because I'm tired. And so after we get in, you know, he got me up the stairs, and I remember falling on the couch, just like, oh. I was like, I'm tired. I said, it felt like I just ran to the stairs, and all I did was walk. And so I still didn't think anything of it. I just had a baby. That's all that's on my mind. I go to the obstetrician this week, so I asked her about it. Okay. That night, I remember pumping. I was pumping a lot. I made a lot of milk. And my heart was just boom, 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 boom. It was just beating, pounding. And so I had called my husband in there again. I said, can you listen to my heart? It was just this heart thing, it did coming in my mind. And so I said, listen to my heart. I said, I just feel like it's beating so fast. And so he listened to it. He said, yeah, it is beating fast, And I was like, I guess because I'm pumping, And so after I was done pumping, everybody, was going to bed. I was the last one to go to bed that night. I remember laying down. I tried to lay down. I couldn't lay all the way down. I had hurried up and got back up. And I was just gasping because it felt like I was underwater for a long time. And I didn't know if that was normal or not. I didn't know. I just thought it was a sinus infection or something that was bad, because I dealt with a sinus infection like that before that could take your, your breathing and stuff. And so I was texting my dad because it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, because at that point I was still pumping every 2 hours. The daughter she would wake up. And so after I had got her back to sleep, I was texting my dad. I was like, Dad, I said, I can't breathe laying down. I said, I can't sleep. I said, I'm just up. I was like, this cold or whatever is just getting bad. And so he called me. He was like, what you mean you can't breathe when you lay down? I said, I don't know. I said, I felt like I was suffocating. Bree, that's not normal. You need to go to the hospital. And I was like, well, I got the baby. I was like, I can't go to the hospital right now, and, my husband had to go to work. So I'm like, I can't go nowhere, and he was like, well, so I was like, okay, well, let me see if my mother-in-law can keep our baby girl. And my son, we went to his grandmother's. And my husband, I told him to go ahead and go to work. I said, Dad, just take me to the hospital. I said I'd probably be home later with some antibiotics. And I remember my mother-in-law telling me, you better pack you a bag just in case. And I was like, I don't need no bag. I said, they gonna give me some antibiotics and I'm gonna be out today. And she was like, all right, but I had listened to her. I had just probably grabbed the pants and a shirt or something like that. Because I was like, I'm coming back. I got to the hospital. And it was a struggle trying to get from the parking lot to the hospital. So after they finally got me in, they checked my vitals. I remember the nurses talking to each other. Normally it's like one person that walk you, but it was 2 of them. And they was talking to each other because one had listened to my heart. They do the normal, the check. My blood pressure was up high. My oxygen levels was low. So I think my oxygen was about 80 or 82. It's supposed to be 98, 99. Or 100. And I was telling them, I came in here for shortness of breath. And so that's what they was taking it serious, because it was shortness of breath. And so they was like, okay, well, what we want you to do, walk with this nurse. He's going to walk you around and he's going to see how long it's going to take you for you to go out of breath. And so it took me 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes walking. I told him I need to go and sit down. And so he did. He took me. I went to go sit down, and they said, okay, we're going to do the x-ray. They did the x-ray first. They saw the fluid. I had fluid on my heart, on my lungs. So they had to drain it because I couldn't do the CT scan because I couldn't lay down. So after they drained the fluid, I kept going to the restroom. I used the restroom probably every 3 minutes. They told me I was going to go like that. They gave me a shot called the Lasix. The Lasix makes all the fluid just come off. So I lost 40 pounds that night. They did the CT scan and they noticed that my heart was enlarged. And so me and my dad looked at each other because we was like, enlarged, and we was like, we just went through this 3 years ago with my sister. I'm telling the doctor this, the ER doctor. And he was like, with your sister, and he looked at my file. He was like, okay, I see her. She died from a cardiac arrest. And I said, yeah, she did. We never found out what happened. They just chalked it up to a virus or something that just attacked her heart, or pericarditis. They didn't really have an actual diagnosis, so they called it a natural cause. At 27 years old, natural cause of going into a cardiac arrest. But we went with it because we didn't have no other answers. And so I'm telling this ER doctor, and we was also explaining that she had a baby as well. And so the ER doctor was like, okay, he's like, you had a baby? Or, because my dad was like, well, yeah, my dad was told him, well, she just had a baby, and then the doctor was like, okay, she had a baby? And I was like, yeah, she's only like 2 months. And so he was like, okay. And so they sent me to the room. I had got admitted. They put me in a room. They said they was going to do some more testing overnight. They did the testing. I remember them bringing back up the echocardiogram. And I was like, why are they doing this again? I said, I already did an echocardiogram when I left the hospital when I had my daughter. Well, because you're having shortness of breath, they was explaining, we have to do the echocardiogram to check, make sure. And I was like, okay. So it wasn't until the next day a cardiologist had came. And when he walked into the room, he walked so calmly in the room. I will never forget that day. He walked calmly in the room, and I remember him just saying, 23 years old. I was 23 at the time. And I was like, yeah. He's like, you so young, and I was like, yeah. I'm like, why am I here? So, but he was introducing himself. He's a cardiologist. And he was like, I had looked at your echocardiogram results, and I wanted to come and explain it. And so before he got to that, he was like, I see in your file that you had a sister that passed away from cardiac arrest. I said, yeah. I said, she did. He was like, and at this point, he already knew I had a baby. It was already written down from the ER doctor. He was like, okay. He said, did she have a baby? And I said, yeah. I said, she did. I said, when she passed away, he was like 6 months. And he was like, okay. He said, well, you're suffering from peripartum cardiomyopathy. It's a heart failure, that comes from the pregnancy. And I'm like, what? Me and my dad, I'm like, what? We never heard of that before. Like, what you mean? And, he was like, well, we don't know what causes it, and we don't know who's going to develop it until, it develops. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So he diagnosed my sister, and he diagnosed me with PPCM for short. And so they changed it in her file. So instead of cardiac arrest, natural cause, it's peripartum cardiomyopathy, the actual diagnosis that it was. So fortunately, he was knowledgeable enough to know what it was. And he said he got 2 patients a year. He get at least 2 patients a year with it. So he kind of knew how to treat it, how to go about it. He ran all my treatment options at me. I remember going through this with my sister, with us trying to get her healed, trying to get everything, right, trying to figure out stuff. And so I was like, okay, Lord, I said, I'm in this situation. I was like, I'm just going to take whatever, and I remember him saying, well, he said, your heart is functioning at like a 80-year-old man. He said my heart was like an 80-year-old man. But he said, but. When he said but, and I was like, what you mean but? He said, but we could try to reverse it. I said it could be reversed. I was excited because it gave me a little hope, because I thought I was gonna die. And I remember him going over the treatment, and he was like, you're gonna start cardiac rehab. He said, yeah, I need you to go to the heart failure clinic. We're gonna do the best we can to get your heart back. And I was like, okay. I remember giving him a hug and just thanking him, and I was like his youngest patient at that time. So I remember starting cardiac rehab. It was kind of, he told me not to stress, because of course you're dealing with heart stuff, you're not supposed to stress. But I remember telling him I was stressed out because I was like, I don't have a big support system. I had lost my mom when I was 12. My sister, now she's gone, and my grandmother, my mom's mom, had left right after my sister. It was just how it happened. And so I'm sitting up here not to think about all these emotions, and I'm a new mom, and I should be focused on my baby, and yet I'm trying to worry about my health now. I'm still trying to worry about her health. I'm trying to make sure she's good, and I got to take her to the doctor. And all this had happened before that, the day that I was supposed to go see the obstetrician. So I never made it to the postpartum appointment. I was in the hospital, and I I remember my obstetrician came up there, and I guess she had just delivered another baby, and one of the nurses or something had told her that you got a patient here, and she was like, who? She had said she looked at the paper, Brianna. So she was like, she went to the cardiac floor. She was like, she couldn't believe it. We had already checked this. We didn't know what happened, so she was really, interested, and from that day on, she kind of had started passing the word, and knowing what to look for if it ever happened again, So at cardiac rehab one day, I had my other sister. I have another sister, my dad's side. She had to take me to the cardiac rehab one day. I had different people taking me because I didn't really have a set, I had my sister on my shirt. It was a rest in peace shirt. And I remember the nurses asked me, they was like, who is this pretty lady on the shirt like that? And I was like, oh, it's my sister. She died from the same condition. What? Oh my God, the same condition, and we never even heard of this before. And it was like that. They was like, it's a remarkable story. You need to get it out. You need to, raise awareness about it. And I was like, what? 'Cause I'm like, I'm trying to, my heart is not functioning properly. I'm trying to focus on this, And so I was like, so I think I had gave it some thought. And later that day, they had called their marketing team. This is them going on behalf of their own self, and they brought it to me. They was like, "Well, our marketing team want to talk to you, about getting your story heard through the hospital." So, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." I thought that was interesting, and so it kind of made me happy a little bit. To be honest with you, took my mind off of what I was going through. And so I remember the marketing team came and they talked to me, and they was like, well, we're going to bring in the news station. And I was like, the news station? I'm like, okay, So they was like, yeah, because we need to get this out. This is important. And I was like, okay. So they were kind of coaching me on how important it was. It was something educational. It was something that needed to be taught. They didn't know about it in their hospital. They wanted to, make it known. And so after the news, I remember just telling myself I'm going to have to push it after this. I'm going to have to do something with it. I can't just let it go to waste, And that later that year, I forgot about the life vest. When he discharged me from the hospital, I had to wear a life vest. The life vest was basically a wearable defibrillator, so it went across my chest just in case my heart stopped. It would bring me back to life, but of course nobody could be around, so we had the people had to come to the house. They had to teach our 4-year-old son at the time, because he was 4, if mommy fall on the floor, don't touch her, you telling a 4-year-old this, and so he's trying to understand that, okay, if mommy fall down, I don't touch her, we trying to teach him how to call 911 just in case, because at this point, my cardiologist, he was like, well, no, he was like, she could still be at home by herself, because in my sister's case, she couldn't be at home by herself. In my case, he was like, well, no, you could be at home, and you will have this on to secure you. And I was like, okay. I felt a little comfort because, if my heart stopped, something would be there to protect it or bring it back. And I wore that for 7 months. 7 months later, my heart function didn't improve to the function that he needed. So with the heart function, a normal heart function is about 55%. And my function was at 15%. So, our heart was about ready to stop, give up. And I remember it rose probably I think it rose 10%, I think. But he was like, no, he was like, you're still at risk for cardiac arrest. We got to put the implantable defibrillator in you now. I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, I'm going to have a hump in my chest. I didn't want no hump in my chest. But, I had to suck it up because if this was going to be what's going to keep me here, I have to do it. So I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to accept everything. I remember praying in my head. I'm like, Lord, I didn't want it, but, he put me in a position I had to get the implantable defibrillator. So after that, everything, was kind of fine. I didn't have to wear this package anymore because with the life vest, you got to wear this purse thing. It was heavy. And so I Remember going through the rest of the year, I did good. My heart function was improving slowly with the medication. They also had new medications then, because I was asking him, well, why the medications didn't work for my sister? I wanted to know why we couldn't. And he was like, well, the medications has changed and the devices has changed within 3 years. I was like, wow, So after the life is, after that year, it was like 2017. Okay, so when 2018 got here, I remember going to Facebook and I had randomly typed in PPCM, Peripartum Cardiomyopathy, and I remember seeing these groups pop up, and I was like, oh my goodness, because I know I'm a cardiologist. He explained that my condition was rare. But when I looked and I saw all these women, I was like, oh my, I'm thinking it's just me and my sister that had this condition because it's rare. So if it's something that's rare, you ain't gonna know a lot of people with it. And it was like 4,000 women in there, they all sharing their stories. They're talking to one another. It was a private group, and I'm like, oh my, everybody's story sounded like mine. And I remember telling them my story and stuff, and then it was a couple months later, it was some thoughts that came, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if we could take these stories and turn it into a blog or something, put it in public so people can read them, so they could know it ain't rare or it could happen to anybody, because they don't know who it's gonna happen to. So I think that would be good for any woman to know. And so I remember reaching out to the ladies and asking them if they wouldn't mind sharing their stories, or the ones that didn't mind. And, a lot of them accepted. And they was like, yeah, I want to get my story out. I want to raise awareness. And so I was like, okay, we can do this. So I remember I was at work. I'm a post worker. I remember being at work one day, and this is after I was able to go back to work, because my cardiologist, I asked him if I was able to go back to work, be able to help my husband around the house. And so I was at work, and I remember hearing in my head, this is just my story, how it went. I heard, what are you waiting for? And I was talking to myself. I'm like, what I'm waiting for? I said, I don't have no finances. I don't have no funds to start nothing, to do anything like that. I'm already knowing what I'm talking about. And so I heard it again. What are you waiting for? And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start it. So I remember picking up my phone. I started an Instagram and a Facebook, and I named it Let's Talk PPCM. I said it's going to be called Let's Talk PPCM because I want people to talk about PPCM because it needs to be talked about. So after I did it, I had jot down a few stories that the ladies had started to share, and I would ask them, I said, y'all can send me y'all pictures and stuff. And at this point, it started getting real, because I was getting multiple stories, and they're sending it to me, and I was like, okay, whoa, I was like, I had to start kind of doing some little business and stuff. I had to start getting consents and making sure everything was good to share and stuff. And it was probably about 6 months later, I think, after I started the blog, I went ahead and turned it into an organization. So I was like, I thought it would be good to go ahead and to make it into something, So I did that. And pretty much after I turned it into an organization, I started getting all these other doors started to open for me to be able to come and share my story or do panels. And all the way up to today, I'm become a speaker out of it. I try to make sure that the awareness is being heard, because it's so many things that you could raise awareness from, and so many rare conditions that we don't know about, but we don't learn about them because it's rare. We don't have to learn about it, right? That was what I felt in our case, and since I felt that when my sister died from it, I got it. My cardiologist did tell me that it's not inherited. He said it was just a genetic disorder, and how it happened like that, it was just, they don't even know how it happened in the same family. He was shocked to see it in the same family. My health now, I am at fully recovered, so I'm at 55% heart function, where it should be. It took 2.5 years to get there, but I did it, and with the help of my husband, and me being with my kids, and just the joy that I guess my heart needed, was helping me heal, because each time I would get an echocardiogram, my cardiologist say, it's just spontaneous how your heart is just increasing like this. He was like, I never seen it increase like this before. And he was like, that's remarkable. Like, and I was like, it is, and I'm like, of course it is. Cause I'm like, I know the bad that can happen. And so I've been sharing with him, I share with everybody pretty much what I do. And, all the nurses and the doctors pretty much started kind of following me and following my story. And so the Instagram, my Facebook, everything kind of started growing. So now I'm be able to work alongside of ACOG now. So ACOG, American College of Obstetrician and Gynecologist here in Washington. But I'm actually a patient advocate for them. So I basically just talk with doctors and physicians and cardiologists, be able to kind of explain to them from a patient's point of view on how it is when it's the other side, or and of course we hear their side. I tell women all the time that I talk to or that reaches out to me, that, oh my, I just found out that I have PPCM, they're in heart failure. And I just tell them, I said, okay, ask your cardiologist, okay, first make sure they know more about the condition, because sometimes the cardiologist or the obstetrician don't know anything about PPCM, which has become a big problem, because when I share the stories, sometimes the doctors, they misdiagnose them. So a lot of them get misdiagnosed, but when they finally get the diagnosis, we're already in heart failure. So at this point, I would tell them to try to just remain calm, find out all your options that you have, all your treatment options, because everybody's treatment options are different. It's not the same, and depending on your insurance. And insurance is a big part, even though a lot of young people, we don't like to have to spend the additional cash, but in my case, it saved my life. But I would try to uplift their spirits, to let them know that you can heal from this. There's a 90% actually recovery rate. So with PPCM, they said there's something about PPCM that you can recover quickly, than any other heart condition or any other cardiomyopathy. So I actually tell women that, and it calms them down to an extent, but you're still, because I done lived that experience, you still have that thought in the back of your mind. And then when you hear stories like mine about my sister dying, it's kind of like, I don't know. But, I try to tell my story on my side. Well, I just did everything my cardiologist told me to do. I took all the medications that he thought would help, and everything kind of worked out. I pray. That's me, and so everyone is different. So it just depends on who I'm talking to when I try to, encourage a woman. But that's mainly the main focus. But what I would tell a woman that's pregnant, that's probably going through some things, either extra shortness of breath, that she would need to, make sure that shortness of breath, it don't get any worse. Make sure you could breathe when you lie flat. You make sure that when you swell, make sure that the swelling is actually normal. Now, with the swelling, the obstetrician, they have this blood test called BNP blood test. What the BNP is, a pro-BNP. So what that does is basically check for heart failure or any type of heart functions, signs. It lets them know, like, oh, okay, this is, she got a little cardiac issues going on with this pregnancy. So mainly, if you're dealing with the swelling, a lot of shortness of breath, maybe even coughing. If you're coughing a little bit, something that's not normal, or even if it's a lot of times it happens on the women's first pregnancy. So with the first pregnancy, ask a lot of questions, ask everything that you can with the first pregnancy. The name of the test is a pro-BNP blood test, and it just checks your make sure that you're not in any type of cardiac issues. And pretty much make sure when you labor, make sure you pay attention to your labor process, because I didn't know about hemorrhaging. I didn't know about postpartum hemorrhaging. Now I know why women die from that, because it was almost me in that state as well, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't say anything. I thought it was normal. And to not be scared, to speak up, because we always think that it's in our head, we're taught certain things that, oh, you don't have to go to the doctor for everything, well, sometimes you do, because in my case, it saved me both times. Unfortunately, the first time I was in the hospital already, 10 hours after labor. And this time, my dad was actually, you need to go to the hospital, so sometimes we need an advocate or somebody there. So that's another reason I like the work that I'm doing with the advocacy, because I want to be able to make sure that if you can save someone's life from anything, even if it's not PPCM, whatever it is, if it's life-threatening, we just have to open up. We have to say something. And if we feel like we're not being heard, you could get a second opinion. If the second opinion seems like it's not doing anything, really don't know where to go from that, because we have to rely on our doctors, and a lot of women still pass on because of that situation. So we're really trying hard to get that changed. And my organization is really the mission, and we're pushing for more research for peripartum cardiomyopathy, because it's not a lot. They don't know a lot about it because it's rare. And, when a condition is rare, they can't really focus on it. They have to focus on what's happening with majority of people. But more women are getting this condition. Our group has been growing. It's growing. Probably every week we have 2 new mothers that was diagnosed with PPCM around the world. They're not in one state, one area. They're nationwide. I recommend women getting the pro-BNP test, because that way I think you would have a little peace of mind that you would know it's not a cardiac situation with your swelling or your shortness of breath or the coughing, right? So if you're having certain sinus symptoms, or it could be flu season, it could be allergy season, because we still get these other illnesses, or even with COVID now there's COVID, and when you have this shortness of breath, COVID, we're mixing with COVID, so now we're trying to figure out, with that. So I would think the BNP blood test would be good, because the obstetrician would at least know what levels their heart is at, to know if, okay, we need to do an echocardiogram, you need to go see a cardiologist. They will pretty much know what to follow after that, so after they see the blood levels, but a lot of women don't know about that test. A lot of women don't know to ask for that test. But you can ask for the BNP blood test. If you feel like you're having any type of cardiac issues, get that test done. It can save your life.